Please take your seats. We're going to get started again. Thank you very much.
Were you surprised to see how many tiny districts we have? It's challenging. I'm surprised. I can update when my children. Thank you.
Just us. Oh. Just us girls up here. Data lit. Lift. Oh. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Sam Lavis, and I'm the CEO of First Things First, and it's my pleasure to be here today to help moderate, or actually to moderate, our next conversation focusing on family engagement efforts that promote and expand early literacy. We all certainly recognize and value the family's role as their child's first teacher, and we know that families need options when it comes to supporting their child's learning and development, and certainly this includes tools for children and families to help develop language and literacy skills in the years before kindergarten, and certainly once they enter school. The folks on stage are going to help us explore why language and literacy are so important in the early years. We're going to talk about the different roles the various system partners are taking in order to support literacy. And then we're going to share a little bit about how each organization has made family engagement in particular a priority. So how about we do some introductions, and I'll start at my immediate left. Excited to welcome Jenny Volpe, who is the Executive Director of Make Way for Books. Would you join me in welcoming her to the stage? To her left is Barbara Tinhorn, who is Chair of Read On Wallapai and Chair of the First Things First Wallapai Regional Partnership Council in Northwestern Arizona. Barbara, thank you for being with us. And to her left is Dr. Christy Sandvik, Superintendent of the Buckeye Elementary School District here in Maricopa County. Dr. Sandvik, welcome. And to her left is Wendy Resnick, Coordinator of Children and Teen Services at the Phoenix Public Library. Wendy, we're so excited to have you. So my first question really is for all of our panelists here. From your respective vantage points, I think you have some unique perspectives certainly to share. Can you share a little bit more about why you and your organization consider early literacy a priority? I think that'll be a nice way to get started and to help frame out the rest of our conversation. So Wendy, why don't we start with you?
Early literacy is a priority because we know that children's brains are developing in the first 3 years, and all of that language and early literacy development is crucial. So it needs to happen in those early years, and we need to promote it and help families learn how to do it. And otherwise, it's just a rolling ball of problem. They go on to school and they're not ready to learn, and so the early years are crucial.
Certainly a natural alignment to your core mission in the library system.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Dr. Sandvik?
I think Wendy hit the nail on the head. For school districts, we tend to believe, at least in Buckeye Elementary District, we believe that if we can cast the net as wide as possible in the realm of prevention, that whole early detection of any possibility of a problem, then we are ahead of the game. As Ralph Smith mentioned earlier, that by the time students get to third grade, it's too late, and the gap has already started. So for us, if we can identify any learners that are potentially struggling in the early preschool or even earlier than that, there's all kinds of medical information out there now where we can detect early abnormalities, any kind of issues in the brain development, then we're able to put intervention into place. And again, for us in our district, it's all about prevention. So for us,
Right.
that early identification of any kind of difficulties, then we can start to put together intervention programs and practices into place and get them ready for school.
Thank you. Barbara, so you have some unique vantage points, certainly in two very community-based organizations. First, the First Things First Regional Partnership Council, and then the new Read On collaboration. Tell us a little bit more about your work.
Okay, this past summer, we became our Read On, and I Read On Wallapai. And first thing, I see First Things First and Read On Wallapai working hand in hand to help each other in helping the communities. Our mission is the children, the young children, from the time they're in the stomach to the time they're up to age 5, on up even to 8th grade. And some of the things that we have noticed and has caught our eye is that our 3rd graders, only 38% pass the Arizona state test. And parents do not realize that a child's brain is developed by the age of 5, and all the things that the vocabulary, you have to speak a lot to your child, and some of them do not get the language, so they're falling behind by the time they're in 3rd grade. And what's some of the unique things that are happening and that making us realize is that when you do not have the vocabulary, by the time they're into kindergarten, they're falling behind. And when they fall behind, that puts more pressure on the kindergarten teacher. Then they're further behind. The 1st grade is trying to catch them up. So by the time they're in 3rd grade, they're falling very behind. And from First Things First, we have found out that if they are not succeeding and being able to read on 3rd grade level, prisons are being made. It was an opening eye. I knew, I'm a former teacher. I worked at the Peach Springs, the school district, the elementary, from kindergarten up to 3rd grade, and I saw that our kids, and like 1 or 2, like my heart is for my kids back home, all the kids. It takes a community to raise a child. And they've got to realize, our parents and the people on First Things First, we realize that. And I'm so grateful to work with our board on First Things First. And they're also working on Read On Arizona, but we are Read On Wallapai. In my Wallapai language, I'd like to say, Gamu, Nya Barbara Tinhorn Ichki, Nya Wallapai. Hello, my name is Barbara Tinhorn. I am a Wallapai. And I'm a proud Wallapai. I'm proud of my people. I'm proud to be here with you people because your love is for the children. Our children are our future. If they cannot read, they cannot write, what are they going to be? Because one day we're going to be old and they're going to be running the state and our different locations, our reservations and whatnot. Can they do it? This is the time. And I'm grateful because you know what? First Things First, maternal. The maternal child from First Things First, I wish I would have had someone there guiding me along. These are the things that are going to happen to your child, where they should be along on the stages. The SQ3, where are they? What kind of help do we need to get them? Hamoka.
Well said. Thank you, Barbara. And congratulations on being one of the newest Read On communities. Impressive. Thank you. Jenny, so certainly a unique vantage point in terms of community-based organization. And tell us a little bit more about your mission and your work.
Yeah, absolutely. Make Way for Books is an early literacy resource center of Southern Arizona, and our mission is 100% to get children ready to read and succeed when they start kindergarten. And we do this work and are privileged to impact 31,000 children, parents, and early childhood educators each year. And for all of the reasons that my fellow panelists have already mentioned, these are the years of possibility and the most important years, and if we can make this impact now, it sets the stage for all future learning.
Thank you. So those of you that had the opportunity to be a part of the First Things First Summit just over the last day and a half, we had one of our keynote speakers, Dr. Nafsaria, talked quite extensively about the importance of quality interactions with children in terms of the adults in their lives. So we know that engaging families in efforts to promote literacy is critically important in this conversation that we're having. So each of your respective organizations really has taken a different approach when it comes to engaging families, and that's sort of we want to dig into that just a little bit more. So maybe we can share with our audience some examples of your specific works and specifically around family engagement and how that's taken shape and what that looks like. So Jenny, why don't we start with you?
Sure. I could talk for hours about this, but I'll spare you all. One of our newest and kind of approach we're really passionate about is our community-based approach. We are, because as Terry mentioned, 67% of children in our community actually don't have access to preschool, and it's around the same percent. It's about 69% of children who are also not able to access childcare in the birth to 5 years. So these are children that have that are in situations where they are not kindergarten is their first formal schooling experience. And so, as part of our Make Way for Books has gotten fiercely passionate about engaging families out in the community and making it as easy as possible. We work with 100% of families who are coming from low-income backgrounds, and so in terms of our family engagement, we've tried to get very innovative and creative and meet families exactly where they are. So, for example, we have a program called Cover to Cover, where we travel via book bus and transform regular community locations into, we call them classrooms without walls. And so what we're really trying to do at grocery stores, food banks, neighborhood parks, you name it, swap meets where families are going with their kids, we're trying to engage them week after week in very effective research-based practices. So it's families and children learning together in places that are already a part of their lives. And we've seen tremendous success. Our families come back week after week, and 94% of parents indicate that they've really gained the confidence, tools, and skills to help their children.
Yeah, impressive.
Thanks.
Yeah, especially this opportunity to think beyond sort of the traditional settings for engaging with families.
Yeah, because I think we really have to get creative here. I mean, we have a system where, again, 7 out of 10 children they don't have access yet.
So maybe we'll skip around. Sorry, cameraman back there. Dr. Sandvik, so Buckeye Elementary School District is also part of a read-on community. Maybe you could share with us a little bit about what family engagement has looked like in your experience.
So, well, we're blessed that we have a partnership with First Things First, and we have a new, relatively new, couple of years now, a Family Resource Center. And it's great in that we're able to offer some of those enrichment activities and parent trainings and some of the things that most of all of you in the room know about. But I would be remiss if I didn't say, one of the things that I guess are the most important in our district is this idea about equity and opportunity for students. And when I talk about that in our district, it's really about having those hard conversations with the adults. And it's about saying in your school district, these are kids that are in kindergarten already. So it's kind of twofold. It's really talking about, okay, listen, they're in kindergarten already. And for us, those guys that are in kindergarten that aren't ready, that maybe don't know how to sit in a chair, maybe don't know how to turn the pages in a book, and bear with me for a minute, because earlier when we were all talking about what's your favorite book, and we were all giggling about and thinking about, my favorite book, this, that's a privileged life that we live. Mm-hmm. And so many of us, I think anyway, at least I do, forget that the kids that are in our districts now don't even have books in their homes. They don't have families, and this is where I get so passionate, and people that work in our district are like, oh God, she's on her soapbox. But it's so true. They don't have books in their homes. They don't, they're homeless. The poverty issues are so great. And so for us, kindergarten's too late. You guys are talking about third grade? We're talking about kindergarten's too late. So I'm going to circle back to this idea of Family Resource Center. That's where you've got people that are kids that are 0 to 5, 0 to 4 actually. And we're having conversations about how do we get resources to those families. And we do the run-of-the-mill parent expos, everything that you guys do, that you know, those are the run-of-the-mill things. It's sort of like stand and deliver, here's all the stuff. But what we're finding in our district that parents won't come to those things. So I love what you just said, well, we gotta take it to them. We gotta get it to them. So we're working really hard on making sure that equity and opportunity is provided to those kids that don't live the life of privilege that probably every single one of you, and I know all of us up here are making an assumption here, but probably had parents or had at least one person, adult in your life that read to you. So we're taking, a good look at that. And then what we do is we make sure that our Family Resource Center has everything it possibly needs in partnership with First Things First to make sure that those families and those kids and those needs, that there's no excuses, because I think like previous people have said, we can do better. And then that way we don't have to look back and go, oh, geez, it's third grade now and those kids are not ready. Tough conversations, let me tell you, just get ready for 6, 7 years of hard conversations, but it has to happen.
Thank you. So Barbara, a foundational idea around Read On is a collaboration, partners. Can you talk a little bit about what you've seen either in the way of challenges or successes when it comes to engaging families in the community?
Okay, what we have right now is we have involvement of the parents to see and understand the stages of the child when they're born up to the age of 5. And with Read on Wallapai this summer, what I did, I'm an ex-librarian, I'm an ex-elementary teacher. I taught elementary for 30 years at our school in Peach Springs because the love for my people. A child can tell whether you love them or not, or you care for them. You don't have to say anything. It's your body language. But I'm real gung-ho in teaching the parents and working with kids. This past summer, I did a book club. I went to the Boys and Girls Club and asked, can I do a summer reading? And the Boys and Girls Club, Miss Tinhorn, we would love it. You have an hour on Monday. You have from 9 to 9:30, you have the younger kids. From 9:30 to 10, you have the older kids. With the older kids, I tried to do a book club because I know reading is very important in the summertime. As the main speaker talked about reading and losing, if you do not keep up on reading in the summertime, you lose what you learn. And reading, whether it's oral or just reading a book for pleasure, keeps that reading on where it should be. And I tried to influence the older kids. I only had a couple, but I would read to them. I love to read books, whether it's little kids' books. I like to dramatize, like Brown Bear, or Pete with the white shoes. Like Pete had his white shoes, his brand new white shoes, and he was walking. I got my white shoes. I got my white shoes. Well, you know what? Pete stepped in a pile of red strawberries. What color did they turn? Red. Did that affect Pete? No. That's all I'm going to do. You want to find out? You need to get Pete and the white walking shoes. But I like to read to kids, and I've been asked to speak. And for like this past June or July, we had a mother and daughter. And First Things First did their little thing, and they asked me, read some books. There were little kids, like, 3 and 2, and there was a 7-year-old. And to keep their, listening. and like it was about a Navajo folk tale about a moose and drinking all the water. You make the moose was so thirsty, and he went boom, boom, boom. And those kids were pretty good. And like Aaron said, I like how you can keep their attitude. But as a teacher, you got to be able, as a teacher, if you're going to have your kids learn, you've got to be able to control them and keep their eyes on you and have, okay, I see you're not looking at me over here. Where's your eyes? Where are they supposed to be? Over this way. But you teach the parents, you teach your audience like this. You know, are you scared to speak? You know, oh, no. No. I thought at first I was going to be scared and whatnot, because this is about the biggest crowd I've talked to, but nah. I like to make people laugh. I like to make people think and realize you are the influence, whether it's one child or a bunch. Whether you touch them, but as a teacher you're not supposed to touch them, they can touch you. But the love, generate that love. And I know these people right here, they have concerns, especially this one. And you're because you're a superintendent, and that's a big responsibility. I was one of those kids that, you know, she asked up here, were you read to when you were a child? I wasn't. I wasn't one of those lucky ones. But you know what? I loved books. When I was old enough to read, I read to escape. I'm half Chinese and half Wallapai, and I wanted to know about my heritage as a Chinese person. I read Pearl's books to find out about the Chinese one. And then I found out today about Knock Knock, and that's a good book too. Like, you have, when you live in where poverty is, you're going to have children that have no dad around. He might be in prison. The mom and dad might be divorced, or he's dead. But right now, I see a lot of grandparents raising their grandkids. It's hard for them. They've already went through raising their own kids.
So Barbara, how are you reaching out? What are some of the
I'm talking to them.
grandparents? Yeah.
I'm
Tell us about how
talking
you
to
reach out
them.
to them.
How am I going to reach my grandkid?
Yeah.
Read. But I'm not good like reading like you do. Spend that time.
Yeah.
Get that time in the evening time where after they take a bath, read to them. Get into that routine. Let them see you reading
So you
a
give them
magazine,
ideas.
a book, you know, because if they see you reading, they're going to love to read. They're not going to hate to learn how to read.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay. I know.
Something tells me she's never been shy about being on stage ever. So, Wendy, the Phoenix Public Library is a member of the Read On community here. The mayor has been really vocal around trying to do what we can as a city, what the city can do in terms of third grade reading outcomes. You're doing some interesting work in terms of screenings, Kids Cafe.
Yes.
Share with the folks in the audience about what some of that looks like and how you're reaching families.
So I think it's important to understand that libraries really are the great equalizer. You know, we're open to everyone. We serve the whole community. Some of the innovative things that we're doing, you mentioned Kids Cafe. That's a program through St. Mary's Food Bank. We have it at 8 of our libraries. We're serving 400 to 500 meals a week to children 6 to 18. And it's funded through the federal SNAP benefits. And the requirement is to provide some kind of enrichment activity. So that's a library, that's a no-brainer. So we do all kinds of, everything as simple as reading aloud to the children, to playing games, helping them with their homework, doing STEM experiments. In the summer, we saw it, we were up around 700 meals a week because of the demand in the summer. We've had a long-term partnership with Arizona Literacy and Learning for reading screenings. This last school year, I think we had a screening almost every week at one of our libraries, either a reading screening or for K through third grade, or a full developmental screening for the younger children. And it was interesting because we've been doing that for a long time, but it wasn't until Move On When Reading that it really took off. And I think the message had to get out there to the community and to parents about how important it was to find out how their kids were doing and find out if there were any developmental delays. We also started a school readiness program this year we call Kindergarten Boot Camp. And it was actually, we started it under our First Things First Parent Outreach and Awareness Grant. And that has also been incredibly popular. So I think that the word is getting out. Parents are concerned. And that point when their children are entering school is a really critical time. They're nervous and they want to know that their kids are ready, and they want to know what they can do. They want to do the best thing, they just don't always know how.
Yeah.
So those are just some of the things that we're doing at the library.
Great stuff. Thank you, Wendy. So we know that early literacy comprises the scaffolding of skills that starts really from birth and continues through age 8 and certainly beyond that. So I'm hoping all of you can talk a little bit about how your organizations are bridging this idea of a 0 to 8 continuum with the needs of infants, toddlers, and preschoolers, and then school-age children. So Wendy, we kind of begin to talk a little bit about this. Maybe we'll stick with you.
Okay, well, so
Sorry, camera guy. I was just
a
gonna...
library, one of the mainstays of the library, of course, is story time. And we do, I think we see about 2,500 children a week in story time at our 17 libraries. And then we reach another, 300 to 400 in outreaches, so Head Starts and community centers and shelters and daycares. But the whole nature of story time has really changed over the years. 20 years ago, parents weren't allowed into story time. It was for school-age children, and they were to sit quietly, and you read them a book, and that was it, and now go. And now we really consider it to be a parent education program. It's not about the children. It's about the parents, and what I tell my staff is the 30 minutes you spend with that child is not going to make a difference in their lives. What you teach that parent to do by talking about the importance of singing to your child, talking, rich vocabulary, reading, all of those things, creative play, those are the things that are going to make a difference in the child's life and help them put them on the right track. So we take that very seriously. That is our First Things First grant, is parent awareness and engagement. So I think our real emphasis is on those early years, but then we also do a tremendous amount of work with school-age children, simply because a lot of families have nowhere for their children to go after school, and the library becomes the de facto daycare. We've been dealing with that for years. So we take advantage of that. We run a lot of STEM-based programs after school, a lot of building clubs, all kinds of educational activities. We've created a big maker space in our central library where children can just learn and create and discover. So those are the kinds of things. And then you get to the older children, entering middle school and high school, and we have a college access program to help them start planning for college. And so for a lot of these kids from low-income families, they don't know anybody who's gone to college. They have no idea how to approach college. So we help them, guide them through that step by step. So they're a real continuum.
So Christy, you're there. That's the front door, right, in the K-12 system. Can you talk a little bit about from your vantage point?
I was just saying, this is so good, Woody. So just ditto, right? She just answered that so well. it's just, some of it is really not that difficult, because really it is about prevention. If you could just take one thing away from what I have to offer, it is really about prevention and casting the net as wide as you possibly can to catch as many kids as you possibly can that are in need as early as you can. And at first, you think, oh, okay, well, how do you do that? And in terms of a school district, and it doesn't matter if you're a little school district or a big school district, you've got to have a framework in place that allows you to do that. So if you just kind of think through, okay, prevention, how do you do that? Well, you do it with a screening measure. And you set up a screening measure, and there's lots of them out there. You can use Dibble's assessment measures. If you're talking about literacy, that's the one that's the most research-based, that will let you know if the kids in kindergarten through 6th grade are at risk for reading failure. That's just one. There's several out there, but it's the one that we use and we have found to be most valid. There's controversy out there about that, but that's not what we're here to talk about. But what I will tell you is that you need a screening measure, and the reason you need that is so you can cast that net wide, catch them, and then okay, these are the kids that are in need of some type of intervention. And you do that really early on, before kindergarten. You do that in preschool. And then, as my colleagues have said, you teach them to read. And earlier, I think I was backstage or one of the table talks or something that you kind of get into philosophical. I've been doing this a long time, and in the 80s it was the reading wars and all this. And you really do have to have those courageous conversations about how you teach reading. It's important because the kids that need to be taught how to read, the National Reading Panel did a huge spread of research on how you teach reading. That's all the information you need to know. There's big 5 things out there: phonemic awareness, alphabetic principle, vocabulary comprehension, and fluency. Those are the 5. And so whatever program that you are going to choose, you need to make sure that those are encapsulated in the program. That's very important. Otherwise, the child is not going to have the best possible success rate in learning how to read. So when you're in kindergarten, obviously, you don't throw that at a kindergartner because there's developmental issues. They want to have, play. And the same holds true for the middle schooler who, for whatever reason, you didn't catch them and, they're 13 years old. You've got to make reading fun. And so that's sometimes why you have people that are reading out loud and they make characters fun and you want them to be engaged and fall in love with reading. And it's more challenging because when they're 13 and 14, well, you all know why that's challenging. But the issue is that's why it's so important that you have leaders in your district and you have people, and all of you are probably like this because otherwise why would you be here, that know the importance of prevention and casting that net as wide as you possibly can so that you're not at the table with 13 and 14-year-olds or 8 and 9-year-olds that are trying to play catch up. So the original question that you had was, what do you do as a school district to build those relationships and build those community bridges? And the thing about Read On that's so important is they provide those programs that allow you to do prevention early on, like Jump Start and all of them that you already know. And that's what we're so fortunate to have, because as a school district, you can only do so much. That old adage of it takes a village. And so that's what we're blessed to have, the Family Resource Center, First Things First, all of those things. So, because the name of the game is to not have that big gap that you have when you have 3rd graders, 4th graders, 5th graders, and you're going to have that. But I always say, cast the net as wide as you possibly can.
Thank you, Christine. So, Barbara,
Repeat the question
yeah,
again,
so how, I think we'd be interested in knowing, so part of the beauty of Read On collaboration and this idea of how you bridge what happens in the early years to the more formal school system is being mindful of who you bring on to your partnerships. Can you share a little bit about how you're bringing together and what organizations or community leaders you're bringing on to the partnership?
Okay, the partnerships that we're bringing on is First Things First with Read On, our Tribal Council. Tribal Council is the very strong one. That before we could even be First Things First or Read On Wallapai, they have to approve, and they see a great need. Boys and Girls Club, the ones that from birth to pregnancy, the maternal child, from First Things First. She's the coordinator is the front runner. When while the mother's pregnant, she's talking to her what to do, you know. Like we have a lot of kind of early pregnancy, 16, 17, and like, what do I do? You know, what am I going to expect? And then what to do with your child. So 0 to 2, then like Head Start. Head Start is a partner with us. They have to buy in. Daycare has to buy in with us. Also the big school, the elementary school. These are some of the partners that we work in that is working with the community to build a better future for our children.
Beautiful. Thank you. Jenny?
Yeah, great. So our primary work is in that birth to 5 space, but one thing we're really proud about, right now we've been initiating, it's a Read on Tucson project that's been in the works for about a year. It's called our Neighborhood School Readiness Collaborative that involves partnership with more than 50 other organizations and entities. And the reason why we undertook this work is because we saw the need to connect better to the K-12 space. And so the way this project works and the reason it's achieved success is because as an early literacy organization, we've identified our highest need elementary schools in our Tucson community, and by highest need, it's low 3rd grade reading scores as well as poverty rates upwards of about 96% of free and reduced lunch families. And so we've coordinated our work around the schools. So all the work, we partner with about 200 preschools and childcare centers doing early literacy programming for children in that space. And then we're out in the community with the community-based work, engaging families at apartment communities. And then we've begun to work at the schools. Doing, again, that same evidence-based family engagement programming and really breaking down barriers for families, bringing families who don't have access to preschool to their neighborhood school for programming. So they might have an older sibling that's enrolled at the school, and then they drop off their school-age children, come to the school for this programming every week. And the results have been tremendous. And in terms of systems level change, we're getting principals really having eyes open about the importance of early literacy. We've had some schools, as you can imagine,
Right.
and these are the neediest schools, many of whom don't have preschools actually attached to their elementary school. And if they do, it's a preschool that has only 16 spaces, if you're going to welcome 300 children to kindergarten and you can only accommodate 16 children in a pre-K program, that's an issue. So principals have been very excited. In one school, we had a principal kind of see the success of bringing families birth to 5 to the school, that she lobbied to get a preschool at her elementary school. So it's little successes like that carve away and help to create a more comprehensive early literacy system that incorporates that super important birth to 5 age group with K-3. So it's been a privilege to lead that project.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wendy, Christy, Barbara, Jenny, that's our time. We really appreciate you.
One more thing?
Of course.
Okay. Another thing that we do is we're trying to keep the culture alive. And First Things First, working with the culture department, they developed books and also a CD to go along. The animals, conversation, plants, Wallapai Tales, and we're trying to keep our culture alive and offering classes for the adults. But this past summer, the culture had a program for 2 weeks, immersion camp, and the kids, the first part of the morning, they were learning Wallapai. They would go back home and they were teaching it to their parents. So, and with the second part of First Things First money, they developed a game like animals. They put it on a big blanket, the artwork on there, and then they had cards and played like bingo. And there were other things, like they did prickly pear juice and making things with it, jam, ice cream, just different things. We're trying to keep our culture alive, and with the help of First Things First, and the kids and the adults, This is an extra little bonus that is really helping our community.
Barbara, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad you made it a point to share that, because for the folks in the audience, what you're doing here then is trying to, in addition to continuing the culture, we're really also talking about the native language and putting it together with a strategy of early literacy. It's fantastic work. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you to all of our panelists for their great feedback, their great perspectives, and for sharing. And thank you to the camera operator for making sure we all got our time on camera. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sam.